We are the team of mediators for Science Gallery Atlanta.
We are
scientists,
trailblazers,
storytellers,
seekers,
questioners.
We are artists.
We are Emory University students, and we are here to invite you
to join us,
to gain courage,
use your voice,
and express yourself without judgment.
Because when you do,
energy is activated,
and an upsurge in creativity is transferred.
What can happen if you access new ways of thinking and expressing?
At Science Gallery Atlanta, we are using virtual experiences and engagement
to connect and see how we can open up
and help us all cope and set the tone for the rest of the day,
the rest of the year,
and maybe the rest of our lives.
Let's be, let's act, because our ability to improve conditions happens when we come together.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to thank you for joining me today in our discussion on faith, spirituality, and the tools it gives us to cope with the stresses of today. My name is Shayna. I'm a student at Emory University and one of the student mediators at Science Gallery Atlanta. This discussion is part of a larger series hosted by Science Gallery Atlanta about the complex world of coping mechanisms. I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion that comes at the topic of coping mechanisms from a resiliency perspective. For this discussion, I am joined by Rabbi Jordan Braunig. Rabbi, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here today. Could you please introduce yourself?
So my name is Rabbi Jordan Braunig. As you mentioned, I am the newly arrived Jewish Chaplain at Emory University. I come to this work with a real sense of excitement about encountering people during a time in their life, like their early 20s, late teens, in which folks are really open to the idea of education being transformative. And that's true within the classroom, and it's really true outside of the classroom. And so I see myself in this role as a teacher, but also as a field guide and a sounding board for students.
Yeah, that's great. I think being at college is kind of a way to find your sense of identity, and having like extra exploration opportunities outside of the classroom, like religious and spiritual opportunities, kind of helps people solidify their identity and have more exploration in that aspect of it. So yeah, I think it's great.
And it's this moment of coming into religious identity or spiritual identity when it's on your own terms. No one's like making you put on slacks or a dress or whatever you have to wear and dragging you to services, but rather anyone who shows up is showing up really of their own volition, which is something I really appreciate.
Yeah, totally. So today's youth do not have as strong of a relationship with faith as past generations. I believe this is due in large part to the scientific and technological advancements that our society has achieved. Within this context, how can technology and science coexist with spirituality?
So science and religion sometimes get set up in as sort of being like antithetical to each other, or in a binary, and one is on one side and one is on the other. And I feel like that's, to me, feels like a mistake, that it's possible to experience the beauty of the world and with a real sense of awe, and with your like rational lens on as well, that like, oh, the leaves are changing and that's beautiful, and that happens because evolution happened, and trees are doing what they can to save energy during the winter. But like, you can still see it and just be like, this fills me with a real sense of wonder and excitement. And those two things you don't have to like let go of wonder, because you understand why the world functions scientifically in the way that it does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I think it's kind of, some people who like stick totally to the idea of science, they like don't accept their feelings as like real, kind of. They're like, oh, this is just a scientific process going on in my mind, so I'm not really feeling the emotions of a love that are more profound than just chemical reactions going on in the brain. I mean, there are chemical reactions, but it's more than that, you know?
Right. I mean, neurons are firing, and at the same time, we're living our lives, and we're experiencing the world in a way that, I don't know, for me, looking at a piece of art on a wall of a museum, or reading a great novel, or walking through the woods silently by myself. Like, I know that there are chemical reactions happening in my brain, and I know that I'm experiencing things because of my nervous system, and at the same time, I feel a sense of being connected to something beyond myself, something more transcendent, and I don't want to like fight that feeling, because for me it's a grounding experience to have those moments.
Yeah, I totally agree. We are in a unique moment in history where everyone in the world is sharing in a sense of grief. This sense of grief has led to a lot of confusion and emotional turmoil, especially within those who have not experienced this emotion to this extent before. How can people come to terms with their grief? And in your opinion, is there a positive way to interpret this universal grieving?
Whether or not people have a belief in the divine or they believe in science, everyone experiences moments of loss and of grief, moments of happiness and gratitude. So these sort of like big feelings that are universal, they're going to happen no matter what our orientation is to the world. So I think that for me, I don't think that Judaism does everything right, but I think that Judaism actually has a lot to teach us about grief and loss. I like that this is like a custom, because we might forget otherwise that like we need to take care of our bodies. We need to nourish ourselves. We need to go on living. And so the first thing you do after you bury someone is to like return and to eat. And then there's this period that's called Shiva, which is the 7-day period after you've buried a loved one. And in that period of time, you're just like in your grief completely. You're not expected to leave the house. You're not expected to work. You're not expected to, shower or do anything. Really, you can just be in it. And during that time, people bring you food. They come and they sit with you. They don't have to say anything to you, but they have to be present for you. And I think that that's a real learning opportunity for us, that sometimes what we need of one another isn't you to make sense of this loss, or to tell me that it's going to be okay, or that the person's better off now, or it's like sometimes what you need to do is just silently be with someone in their sorrow. And so that's the 7-day period called Shiva. After that, there's like a standing up and a sort of returning to the world, but not a complete return, because the next period of time is called Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning, which is one in which you are halfway in and halfway out of the world. You might go to the grocery store, but you're probably not gonna go catch a live music act or go hang out. But it's like you're in between returning to the world and still being deep in your grief. And that's after 30 days. For people who've lost a parent in particular, because of the uniqueness of that relationship, there's like a full year of mourning. And that period is one in which people will recite a prayer on a daily basis if they want to say Kaddish for this person. Then that happens during this period. And for me, it feels really smart that there are these like concentric circles of grief, and it feels like in our life sometimes we need really explicit directions about how to go about living, and particularly in times of intense loss, to say, okay, like this period is for the most intense grief, and this next period is still deep in it, but you're starting to like dip your toe in the water of living again. And then for the next year, it's not going to feel the same. You're going to have holidays and birthdays, and you're going to have all of these experiences where you're going to long for this person to be with you, and you're going to experience them not being with you for the first time. And then after this year, it's not like our grief goes away after the year, but rather it shifts and it changes, and it feels like we need societally to give ourselves permission to be in different moments of grief, and to figure out how to support one another and how to really take care of ourselves in the midst of life's sorrow, which is like just part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's like a lot we can learn from these traditions on coping with grief, especially like not only does it give you a framework of what you're supposed to do, especially when you're so overcome with an emotion that you just are kind of lost in finding what to do with yourself, but it also, like, our society is such a go, go, go society that you're not really given opportunity to sit and just feel your emotions to an extent that you need to. Like, we should be able to feel these strong emotions like grief and process them properly. But the way that our society is structured, we're not given that. Like, there's not really such thing as like mental health sick days. Like, you're not that's not really a thing, but there should be a thing. And we should learn something from these Jewish traditions. Like, we should give people the decency of recovering from their emotions, because it is powerful and they are going through something and they need time. It takes time to recover. So I think it's powerful.
I mean, so much of this is about making space for like what we're experiencing in a moment, and not rushing to be better and to be over it, but rather to live with it.
Do you have any advice for those who might be struggling to maintain their sense of spirituality in the face of a multitude of personal and societal stressors?
The one thing I would say, if people are struggling spiritually, my like instinct as a rabbi is to validate that. Be like, of course you're struggling. Like, this is a time for us to like really experience. This is a time in which we're really experiencing deep uncertainty and instability, and you're not alone in that. I feel like religious traditions don't shy away from the big feelings. The feelings of sadness, the feelings of like great joy. And Judaism in particular does a good job of recognizing that those feelings are often intermingled. You don't get one without having the other. At a Jewish wedding, the last act is to like break a glass, because there's always brokenness, there's always sadness amidst the joy, and we're better off when we don't try to ignore that, but when we acknowledge it. And there's a line in Psalm 30, which is, Ba'erev yalin bechi. At night I go to bed crying, v'laboker rina, but in the morning I experience joy. And I bring that up because there are so many verses and so many lines in our ancient faith traditions that speak to the human experience, that we know what it is to feel alone, to feel desperate, to feel like the sun is never going to rise again, but to just sort of repeat these lines sometimes as a mantra that like the sun is going to rise, there's going to be a new day, hope emerges. And we all know that feeling, that experience of waking up and feeling some sense of renewal, some sense of, okay, today's a new day. Every day the world is renewed. I have the potential to like be my best self today and to rebuild the world. And so, you know, my hope is that we can turn to our faith traditions as resources in this time, because we are going through these struggles that feel really elemental and really basic and really like deeply human, and to turn to them for wisdom because they're old, and though much has changed in the last 3,000 years, there's a lot about the human experience that is very, very similar.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're getting at like the basic fact that we as humans are very resilient, and we can like bounce back from very hard emotions if we just work, or if we, with time also, but like there are tools available to everyone if we just go and find them. And they're often in these old faith traditions and meditation practices. Like they're there, they're available, they're also within us if we look for them. So yeah, everyone can rebound from their emotional turmoil that they're experiencing, and they just have to find something that works for them.
For those who are spiritually minded, or those who are seekers, or those who are seeking out moments of mindfulness, to like use spirituality as a guide. And for those who, you know, want to put on an album that always makes them feel better, or want to go lay in the grass at night and stare up at the stars, like there's not one right way to experience awe and wonder and bliss and gratitude, but these are particular practices that are the spiritual technology handed down to me, and that's sort of what I'm going with.
I think that's a wonderful note to end on. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an amazing discussion. I am taking away a lot from this discussion, and I hope everyone who's watching this is also have taken a lot away from this too. So thank you so much for joining us.